This is Radio Health Journal. I'm Nancy Benson. This week, the other benefits of being a musician.
They easily learn foreign languages by ear, and they're also very good in identifying particular language tones.
How music rewires the brain when Radio Health Journal returns.
I'm Reed Pence, the producer and host of Radio Health Journal. If you like listening to Radio Health Journal, you'll also like our sister show, Viewpoints, which covers a wide array of topics from education to history to the environment. Here's a preview of what they're covering this week on Viewpoints.
We've also seen kids being intubated in the ICU, having to go onto ventilators, having to have significant increases in support.
We speak with a pediatric doctor about keeping kids healthy this fall. Then,
I can understand the frustration of both researchers as well as patients and caregivers that there have been all these failures. I'm frustrated too.
The difficult task of finding answers for Alzheimer's. I'm Marty Peterson.
and I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth this week on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
Listen to Radio Health Journal and Viewpoints on your favorite radio station, and subscribe and listen anytime on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Also, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Radio Health Journal.
Do you play an instrument or did you take music lessons as a kid? Millions and millions of Americans could say yes. Many schools have band or orchestra programs, and some parents enroll their children in private music lessons. But learning to play an instrument or singing in a choir is more than just a fun pastime. It actually has positive long-term effects on the brain. According to a recent study in the Journal of Neuroscience, musical training actually rewires the brain.
The wiring is a very good term. For us, the wiring is very important because it describes a bit how the brain is anatomically connected or interconnected.
That's Lutz Janka, professor of neuropsychology and cognitive neuroscience at the University of Zurich, who worked on this particular study with a team from Stanford University. It's not the first time musicians' brains have been the focus of research. Janka says scientists have always been interested in the inner workings of musicians' brain, especially in the last 25 years.
At that time, we have been interested in studying what we call the plasticity of the human brain. Or to put it in other words, we were interested in how the human brain is shaped by experience. And at that time, we thought, which kind of group should we study? And we searched for people starting very early in life with training and practice this kind of skill mostly throughout their entire life.
Musicians are the perfect subjects for a study like this. Professional musicians often start training at a very young age, so their brains are the most likely to show how adaptation works. Janka says the younger someone is when they start learning a particular skill, the better equipped they'll be later in life.
That is something what we also have identified in a very, very early study in the 1990s. And if you compute, use age of commencement, and then you calculate how many practice hours most musicians have done so far, then you can say you earlier start with musical training, the more you might have practice if you are practicing continuously. So I think the number of practice hours is very, very important. And we know from other studies that, for example, practicing a musical instrument until the age of 18, 7,000, 8,000 hours in total is an amount of practice in which many professional musicians demonstrate.
But if that's not you, don't be discouraged. Janka says that older brains are still capable of picking up advanced skills, like playing an instrument. 50 or 60-somethings may not be able to reach the level of professionalism that lifelong musicians can reach, but they can still find enjoyment.
The plasticity or the potential to be plastic is much greater in earlier life. That's no doubt about. But the brain is also plastic in older life. For example, if a senior is going to start to learn a musical instrument, he can actually learn to play a musical instrument with the age of 60, 65, and so on. There are many examples of that. And the brain of these seniors is changing according to what he is practicing. So it's in some way, it's similar to what we see in those who have started early in life. But if you start later in life with practicing, you never will become a world-class pianist. We have to acknowledge that if you start something to learn at older ages, you will not become world class, but you can learn something which will give you pleasure. For example, if you start to learn a musical instrument with 60, you might be able to play nice melodies with 65, for example, and you will have pleasure and reward doing that.
But music does more than just influence the brain for singing or playing an instrument. It also impacts other cognitive functions. Most notably, musicians have stronger connections between the hearing centers and other parts of the brain. That's why musicians have an easier time picking up foreign languages. It's their ability to pick apart different tones and sounds.
They easily learn foreign languages by ear, and they're also very good in identifying particular language tones, prosody, for example. They are very good in. So that's the easiest, I would say, relationship from music to other cognitive functions. That's language.
Musicians' heightened auditory ability lends itself to other important communication functions, too.
It could also be possible that these connections, which are also involved in controlling other language functions, for example, semantics, musicians could also have a benefit in processing language semantics. They could also have an advantage in memory functions, because memory, particularly explicit memory, declarative, explicitive memory, depends on a strong interconnectivity in the human brain. And therefore, we anticipate, or we speculate, or maybe even hypothesize that musicians are very good or better than normal subjects or non-musicians in explicit memory functions.
But it's not just music that rewires the brain. Other activities have similar effects. They may not all impact the auditory cortex, but Yanka says skills such as playing golf or dancing will rewire the brain according to the needs of that activity.
The point is, for us as plasticity researchers, we know that everything what you practice intensively for a quite long time has a kind of effect on some brain areas. For example, if you look at the brains of golf players, you would see specific anatomical features in the brain of golf players. And these anatomical features correlate with the handicap and the amount of practice. The same you can see in dancers. We have studied ballet dancers, world famous ballet companies, and you can see anatomical changes in the brain areas which are controlling their feet, their legs, and their arms and their body. So everything what you practice intensively has consequences for the brain areas which are controlling what you are practicing in very frequently.
Young people who take on skills such as an instrument or a sport develop a strong foundation for what's known as executive functions. Yanka notes that these pastimes also teach kids discipline and focus.
I think this is quite important in the current time, because many kids and adolescents are not so focused in, or do not learn to be focused in school and in their life, because I would say there are so many stimuli and signals around us. The internet is big, and we have to learn to control our attention. And I think kids and adolescents can learn by musical training to improve their executive functions and to become more attentive and more self-controlled and more able to inhibit distractors and to focus on that what is most important. And that can be transferred to everyday life situations, into school or other kinds of educations.
You can find out more about this topic and our guest, Dr. Lutz Yanka, on our website, radiohealthjournal.org. Our segment this week was written and produced by Bridget Killian. Our studio producer is Jason Dickey. I'm Nancy Benson.
Radio Health Journal returns in just a moment.
Supporting immune function through a healthy diet has become an important new focus for many people these days. One key recommendation is to eat more vegetables and fruits, such as grapes, every day to improve immune function. Combining grapes with vegetables can help achieve this goal in a tasty way, according to registered dietitian Courtney Romano, health advisor for the California Table Grape Commission.
Fresh grapes are heart-healthy and hydrating and linked to benefits in multiple areas of health, including supporting immune function. Grapes are always a smart snack choice on their own, and they also pair well with other healthy foods such as vegetables to enhance flavor and nutrition. Add grapes to a kale, spinach, or arugula salad. Roast grapes with cauliflower or broccoli. Combine grapes with cucumbers and feta for delicious and healthful eating.
Grapes from California are a natural source of antioxidants and other polyphenols. Visit grapesfromcalifornia.com for more information and over 300 recipes.
And that's Radio Health Journal for this week. Radio Health Journal is a production of MediaTrax Communications. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more. And check Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify for a library of past programs. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and information about our guests at radiohealthjournal.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Radio Health Journal.
Coming up next week on Radio Health Journal.
I'm really excited about how synthetic biology may address key societal and human needs for global good.
Synthetic biology. Is it the answer to many of today's global challenges?
Then why words matter, how language can reduce the stigma of drug and alcohol addiction.
Basically describes him as an alcoholic, as opposed to saying this is an individual with an alcohol use disorder.
All that and more on Radio Health Journal.